In 590 AD, Pope Gregory I set down a list of the Catholic Church's most objectionable sins. These mortal acts destroy the life of grace and lead only to eternal damnation.
We all know the 7 deadly sins. If you are not familiar, check out the movie Seven, starring Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, and Kevin Spacey. What's in the box? What's in the box? If I ever use that line, that's from this movie.
Who's in the box?
Because I envy your normal life.
Put the gun down, David.
It seems that envy is my sin.
Oh, what's in the box?
Whatever is in the box is probably better than anything you ordered off Goop. So there's that. Gwyneth Paltrow is also in the movie, but I won't ruin anything for you. The 7 deadly sins are pride, lust, envy, gluttony, which includes drunkenness, wrath, and sloth. These aren't so much sins as they are vices. They kind of open you up for sin. They open you up to turn away from God, basically. That's why it's a Roman Catholic thing, although these these vices are pretty secular. Now, to counteract the 7 deadly sins, we have the 7 virtues. 7 virtues kind of go head to head with the sins. There is a devil on this shoulder that wants you to commit a sin, and an angel on this shoulder that wants you to do a virtue instead. Which one will you listen to? We're all different, but we can look at this as society as a whole. Where do we stack up in 2020? Who is winning, sin or virtue? So you think you know the answer, but you might not know the answer. Pride versus humility. Pride, I'm giving this one to sin, and it kind of gets into circular reasoning. For example, can you be proud of being too humble? Now in society, in American modern society, pride is something good. We say we're proud of ourselves, we're proud of our families. It's actually a virtue now. They kind of turn it on its head. It also kind of borders on narcissism now. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad thing. Like, we know we're too good to be serfs now. We're not going to go and give our lives in stupid wars like people used to do back in the day. Like, we have enough pride in ourselves as human beings to know what our worth is. Now, of course, you can get into too much pride. There are a lot of songs on the top 100 billboards that are all about being proud of yourself, boasting, showing off, putting other people down. Of course, social media, the half of the point of all of social media is just to boast and put other people down. So this is why I kind of give the win to pride here. Now, did we take pride a little bit too far? Yes, maybe so. And this was my problem with reality TV in general, is that people are proud of doing nothing. Yes, reality TV is my guilty pleasure, particularly British reality TV, in which common people berate wealthy people for being below their standards. This is probably the best stuff on YouTube. Still, reality TV as a medium is basically people getting in front of the world and saying, pay attention to me even though I have no talent and very little discipline.
More than any other occupation on earth, kids in America say they want to be famous influencers. We want to do an experiment to see if we can take some random people and make them fake famous.
I am secretly hoping that that era is behind us because we're into a new decade. It's 2021 now. You know, the knots and the teens were really about social media. It was about reality TV. It was about the selfie. It was a really decadent time. And I wonder, and I hope we're kind of moving through that decadent time to the other side where maybe humility will be valued a little bit more. We'll see, hoping and praying. But right now, as of filming, pride wins this one-on-one. Number 2, greed versus charity. This one is actually kind of hard because Americans are very charitable people. We give a lot to charity every year. Now, a lot of that is questionable. It's questionable. How much is it really going to help poor orphans and widows, et cetera, whatever. The point is that Americans were generous enough to give however much money to charity to help the less fortunate. And that's really impressive. For whatever else people say of Americans, we are a generous people. I know people tell you horrible things about Americans, but we're really not that bad. We tend to be friendly. We hire people. We hire friends and family. We buy things from our friends' businesses, even though it might be a little bit more expensive than shopping online or shopping around for prices. So in that way, we are also very generous. It doesn't technically count as charity, but being friendly and being willing to pay more so that the community is stronger, I count this towards a generous disposition, which is why it was so hard for me to give this one to greed. But I had to give it to greed because it is kind of the American credo.
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all of its forms. Greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind, and greed, you mark my words, will not only save Teldar Paper, but that other malfunctioning corporation called the USA. Thank you very much.
So charity is in the running here. Unfortunately, we also spend a lot of money on ourselves, on things that we don't need, on things that we just kind of like a little. And that is kind of greedy because we didn't need the new thing. Where is all this stuff going? I think I mentioned it in a video recently. Like, we're not recycling the way people think we're recycling. A lot of this stuff is just going into the landfill. So I do wish we had a culture that was more of a reuse culture, a more of a buy it and then run it into the ground kind of culture, instead of a culture that's just like, you have to get the new flashy thing all the time, even if the old one works perfectly well, because that is kind of greedy. Also, side note, I feel that greed and envy are sort of a toxic duo, and the two of them kind of got together and made this love child called marketing, called advertising, and that love child of greed and envy is just running all over our culture and our psyche right now. So I am not going to include marketing or advertising in this fight because virtue wouldn't stand a chance. Next up, lust versus chastity. Sin might be winning this one. Sin is doing very well right now, I'm not gonna lie. This win is clearly for sin. We are a very lustful culture right now. Yes, we had the sexual revolution. Yes, we are more free, and I don't want to take away from that at all. We can choose to be intimate with our partners and not have a child because of that. And, yada, 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 that leads to maybe not the most chaste society. That's all I'll say on that front. So lust is winning this round by a long shot, actually.
Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. Hold up.
Do you remember back in the day where all those teen girls were wearing chastity rings? And I don't even know if they took it off to have underage sex with their boyfriends. In the comments, let me know if you took off your chastity ring to have premarital sex with your boyfriends in high school. You know that's what they were all getting up to. Or else they got married way too early to someone that wasn't perfect for them, and now they're on their second marriage or whatever. Moving on, putting that behind us, putting the brainwashing behind us. Like I said, I do not want to take away from the sexual revolution of the 60s. It really did free women up to do a lot more than just have child after child after child after child. I do have to say that teenage pregnancy is down, and a lot of people are not having sex face to face. A lot of people people are being intimate over the computer, over the phone, over texting, sexting, or whatever. So physical lust might be down from its peak a few decades ago, but there is still emotional and mental lust because, we have online temptations everywhere, all over Twitter, all over the internet, Instagram. I think that is the point of Instagram, is just online temptation. I'm not really sure, but it always tempts you to do one of these sins. And that's because it's what we keep clicking on. So what can I say? Also, and not to be snippy, but have you ever met a girl named Chastity that wasn't a stripper? Okay, so it's not looking good for virtue. Sin is in the lead, 3-0. But there's 4 more to go. So let's not count virtue out yet. Number 4, envy versus gratitude. See? Virtue is back in the fight. I give this to gratitude. Do you remember Oprah had the whole campaign in the knots about gratitude, keeping a gratitude journal, telling people you're thankful when they do things for you, which you're supposed to do anyway, just generally living a life of gratitude. And she was kind of the prophet for that.
It's thinking about what you have versus what you don't have and focusing on the one thing that you are grateful for increases the energy of gratitude.
And that's where a lot of us learned it first, that we should be grateful for everything, that nothing is really owed to you, and the fact that you're living a good life means that there are people out there you should be grateful to. Maybe those people aren't still around, but you can still be grateful to the world. You can still be grateful to your ancestors for having done what they did to put you in the position that you're in. Now, was the gratitude movement a subconscious attempt to please the universe and therefore gain more things for ourselves?
So I start my day with something that is going to put me in a positive frame of mind so that I begin attracting to me positive energy.
Yeah, maybe, whatever. We still did the movement. There was still a gratitude movement. And yes, there had to be a gratitude movement because people were so ungrateful generally. But that is not the point. The point is there was a movement and it was popular and you can buy a lot of gratitude journals now. And it's very hard to find a journal that says be ungrateful or screw all y'all, I'm gonna get mine. Maybe you think it, but very few people print that on a journal. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now, that's not to say that envy isn't in this fight at all. Social media is filled with influencers whose sole job, it seems, is to make us jealous. They just post these images, these stylized and fake versions of their lives. And the reason they do that, the reason they show us the absolute best and none of the worst, is kind of to make us jealous, to make us wish we were living their lives. And that is envy, ultimately. However, we all get our own scorecards and we all get to decide for ourselves who is winning this round. And I'm giving it to gratitude because I see gratitude more in my personal life. You can give it to envy if you want. It's anybody's game at this point. Kind of, sort of, maybe. You know how the NBA Finals goes. You know when it's 3-1, there's a greater chance of the 3 winning. But it hasn't won yet. So don't pop the champagne bottles so quickly. Number 5, gluttony versus temperance. Okay, you can pop the champagne bottles now. Gluttony definitely wins this round. I don't even think it's a chance. I don't even think it's a fight, gluttony versus temperance. Sin, you won 2021. You have the upper hand. Congratulations. But there is no end to the game, okay? This game goes on forever and ever and ever so long as humans go on. So I'm going to keep playing just to keep playing, okay? This is kind of like the locker room talk at halftime. Okay, virtue, you're losing now. You're almost out of the fight. What are you going to do? You're going to come back in the second half and you're going to take it. Maybe, sort of, kind of, I don't know. Also, drunkenness is included in gluttony. And Americans love to drink. We're drinking a lot more now than we even did before. A lot of that is due to the pandemic. A lot of that is to do with us being home, with us just being bored. You know, there isn't a week that goes by where one of our celebrities doesn't launch a new line of liquor. Everybody's got a line of liquor. Everybody's drinking their friend's line of liquor. You don't show up to a party without bringing a bottle. So just on the drunkenness alone, gluttony is winning. Now, of course, we had that temperance movement about 100 years ago. It didn't really work out. Temperance kind of played itself in the 1920s with prohibition, took it too far, tried to keep everybody from drinking legally, and it kind of blew up in everybody's face. So it was a whole mess. So basically, temperance removed itself from the conversation with prohibition. So you played yourself, temperance. Way to go. Anyway, taking booze out of this scenario completely, we still eat a lot. Americans are gluttonous people. I'm not even talking about mukbang. I'm not talking about all the food and travel shows that we need to watch a show of people eating like we didn't already spend 3 hours today eating ourselves. We have to watch other people doing it. I don't get it, but America loves it. America loves watching other people eat. And also, we like to eat ourselves. How much of the country is overweight? How much of the country is obese? And yes, we do not have the gut microbiome of our ancestors. We do not have their active jobs, but nevertheless, for this much of the country to be overweight, over what doctors say we should be. Not going to go into BMI and how BMI is measured and what technically makes a person overweight. Like if you've got a lot of muscle, you know I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people who eat too much. And that's really almost all of us. That's nearly every American that eats just a little bit too much. So I guess I'm not even talking to people who eat just a little bit too much. I'm talking to people who eat way too much. Those people, you won this battle. You took it for gluttony. You took it for sin. Congratulations on your victory. Almost a blowout. Virtue, I hope you can pull this around. Number 6, wrath versus patience. Look at that. Virtue held on, and she has another victory. I give this one to patience. Americans are actually quite patient. Now, yes, we've had a recent increase in violent crime. We have been at historic lows for violent crime. We've been doing very well. We just had a rough period. We're kind of in a rough period. We're kind of like a little dip, and we can come out of it. We can really come out of it. The fact is, the news reports more strife than there actually is. Like, yes, there is crime. Yes, there is strife. But if you go online, you think there is nothing but crime. You think there is nothing but strife. And in reality, it's just what we're hearing more of. Of course, we have dangerous places in the world, like Afghanistan, like Syria, like the Middle East, particularly Israel. But that's not where we are right now. We're talking about America in 2021. If you're watching from those places, welcome to the channel. I'm sorry we drone you so much. I mean, I'm not the president, but if I were president, I'd probably drone you a little less. Nevertheless, thanks for tuning in. Duck. You know, time was when people would fight each other by hand. You'd have like berserker units. You'd have seriously disturbed individuals, like serious just warriors that had spent their entire lives in hand-to-hand combat with other men. We don't have those anymore, thank God. Yes, we do have calculated killers, and calculated killers can be a lot worse than these sort of just raving lunatics. Now we put those raving lunatics into prison. They're too dangerous to just be around the regular population. So we are kind of like self-domesticating. Like we domesticate livestock by choosing the friendliest livestock. We domesticate dogs. We domesticated wolves and turned them into dogs by choosing the friendlier dogs. And so we are kind of self-domesticating humans as well by choosing the friendlier, more social humans to breed with, particularly the men. It's just the way it is. We're domesticating the men by not breeding with the killers because they're in prison.
The Kung San of Southwest Africa. And here we see a Tweed had killed 3 other people when the community, in a rare move of unanimity, ambushed and fatally wounded him in full daylight. People in a rare move of unanimity. They talked about it, they said, that guy, he's killed 3 people, he just can't be trusted, we just need to get rid of him, let's do it. And they had a form of capital punishment. Capital punishment was discovered about 20 years ago to be a human universal. It occurs in hunters and gatherers in all continents. It's possible because humans are able to use language to discuss with each other that there is a troublemaker in the community. And if one looks at the ethnographies, it appears as though it is aggressive males that are the principal victims of capital punishment.
Wrath has shown its ugly face on the India-China border. Because we have nuclear weapons, because we have such great war technology, these great powers don't want to fight head to head. But on the India-China border, they are crossing the border to literally beat each other to death. Respect Wrath, really respect. You're still out here, you're not just giving up this game. You gotta give credit where credit's due. Wrath is really trying here. But still, for the most part, we are more patient now than we were before. So, win goes to patience. Seven, sloth versus diligence. I give the win hands down to diligence over sloth because Americans are super hardworking. We are super hardworking.
Why do we do this to ourselves? Well, the conventional answer is that this attitude towards work makes the American economy the envy of the world. America is a hectic, turbocharged system that builds, destroys, rebuilds, all at warp speed. Some experts believe that working harder might actually depress productivity numbers because the additional hours worked rarely generates strong output. We are not as productive at 8 p.m. as we are at 9 a.m.
That's another video entirely. Like, how valuable is each of our work hours? How is each of our man hours? Do we optimize the amount that we can do in that time? We don't necessarily manufacture as much as we should, as much as we need to. We learned this last year in the pandemic when we didn't have the masks we needed, we didn't have the ventilators we needed. And also, Americans as a whole don't exercise as much as they should. As much as the doctors tell them they should. This is not my opinion. Don't at me. Now, as far as American jobs being shipped overseas so that we don't manufacture as much as we used to, nobody asked for this. Yes, Americans were complicit in the 90s when they let Walmart take over so they could spend a little bit less. But I don't think they knowingly sent their jobs overseas. I mean, this is why we saw such a backlash in the 2016 election against globalism, is that they didn't know what they were getting into, and they do want their jobs back. People do want to be working. They don't want to be on the side of the road with a needle in their arm, which is what we're seeing. We're seeing when people don't work, they get miserable and they start using drugs. Do I blame boomers for this, who decided to go to Walmart and save a few dollars on aluminum foil and screw the whole economy? I don't blame the boomers. I didn't even bring up the boomers. And as far as the lack of exercise goes, we're kind of in a physical fitness gap. We're in a gray area. Like, we used to have jobs that were more physically active, that required us to be on our feet for longer hours, or we would have to do a lot of housework that was very manual labor heavy. Appliances have taken so much work off of our hands. We don't have to wash with a washboard anymore. We put it in the washing machine does all the work. Same thing with the dishwasher. It's super easy to clean your house right now. Didn't always used to be this easy. You can vacuum your carpets and your rugs now. Before, you had to beat them out. So I just feel that we're in a gap space between our lives being very physical and exercise making up for that lack of physical activity. A lot of us are addicted to exercise. A lot of us exercise every day religiously. And it is kind of borderline religious, because there is a bit of euphoria to it when you get that endorphin release having finished your exercise for the day. If you are not addicted to exercise, congratulations. Aren't your coping mechanisms so good? Don't you not suffer from anxiety? Yay you, yay whatever. I've heard from people who do have addictive personalities. I have a slightly addictive personality myself, so it helps out a lot, and it helps to keep negative impulses at bay. It's like idle hands are the devil's plaything.
It's my hand, okay? It's like it's got a mind of its own. It makes me do things I don't want it to do.
Oh yeah, man? I used to be like that. Get into all kinds of stupid shit. Look, the trick is to keep yourself busy. That's why I'm always working on the Ford. Keeps me out of trouble. Idle hands are the devil's playground.
Keep my hands busy.
We are not lazy. We could be even less lazy still if we wanted, but that's another video for another day. This win goes to virtue. For now, sin wins, but this keeps going. It's not over yet. Virtue can still come back. I know a lot of you are going to say this is overly optimistic, this is naive, but whatever. I do see a trend in people. I'll call them the constant self-improvers. There are people out there, you are probably one of them, that just want to get better. They want to get better at everything, and they make efforts to get better at everything, and they make efforts to discipline themselves and do what is good and avoid doing what is bad. They make efforts to make themselves stronger. Goggins, for example, if you follow Goggins, if you listen to Goggins, you're probably one of these people, one of these constant self-improvers. And so that's why I believe that virtue can win this. I don't know, maybe in 100 years when they're doing another rematch of this, they're going to say, okay, now it's virtue for sin 3. Maybe. Subscribe.